Hey class, today we're going to talk about fractions and the different types of fractions. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that up here. All right. So again, we got fractions. Okay, we're going to be talking about fractions. All right. So the first thing we want to talk about is that what fractions actually means, right? And so fractions is always a part, right? That's what we think of when we hear fractions, right? So fractions means part of a whole, something that's whole, or when we think of whole numbers, right? Parts of a whole, right? And so we know what a whole number is, right? Whole numbers start with 0, right? And again, so when we're talking about these whole numbers, 1, 2, 3, whole numbers, right? That's when we talk. That's what we mean when we're talking about a part of a whole, right? And so, so in other words, fractions are supposed, right? The word suppose, right? Supposed to be less than 1, right? Less than 1, but greater than 0, right? Less than 1, but greater than 0. And so that's why whenever you were in elementary school, they talked about proper fractions. Right? They talked about proper fractions because it's the proper way that we're supposed to think about fractions. Okay? The proper way that we're supposed to think about fractions. And so one thing they told us was that proper fractions, right, is where the numerator is, and again, numerator means the top number of a fraction, right? So this is the top number, right? And you can even write that in parentheses. Let's actually write that right here in parentheses. The top number of a fraction, right? Top number. So numerator is the top number. Numerator is less than, right? Numerator, top number, is less than the denominator. And in parentheses we can write, either we can write underneath it, bottom. Let's erase this. Bottom number. Okay? So when we think about proper fractions, we think of that's the way that fractions are supposed to be written. Give examples. 1/2, 3/4, 7/8, 4/5, and 2/7. And so you'll notice that the numerators, all the numerators, the top numbers are smaller than the denominator. This is smaller than that one's smaller than that one, that one's smaller than that one's smaller than that one, less than that one, that one's less than that one. Okay? And so that's the way we need to think about proper fractions. Okay? Alright, now, since there are proper fractions, there are also things called improper fractions. Okay? So improper fractions is when the numerator is greater, right? The numerator is greater than the denominator. Numerator, we already said numerator is the top number. Numerator is greater. Numerator is greater than Okay, so that's an improper fraction is when the numerator is greater than denominator. Okay, actually I want to say greater than the denominator. That's the idea. Okay, here are some examples. 5 halves, or 5 over 2. 13 over 16. 13 over 16. 2 over 1, right, is an improper. And 25 over 3. Okay, these are improper fractions. These are improper fractions because the numerators are greater than the denominators. The numerators are greater than the denominators, right? Numerator is the top number, denominator is the bottom number. Okay, that's mixed numbers. I'm sorry, that's improper fractions. Now we're going to move on to mixed numbers. Okay, now we're going to move on to mixed numbers. Okay, let's do that. Okay, this is all review. You've seen this before. We're just going over it again so we can remember. Okay, the next one is mixed numbers. Right? Mixed numbers is, and it are really, mixed numbers are, or is a mixed number is a number that combines a whole number and fraction. Okay, so a mixed number is a number that combines a whole number and fraction. Okay, and let's go over some examples. We got 1 and 1/8, 2 and 1/5, 305/8, and 12 and 2/7. Okay, notice it's a whole number combined with a fraction, whole number combined with fraction, whole number combined with fraction. Okay? Now, again, we've already went over proper fractions, improper fractions, now mixed numbers. Now we're going to try to understand what a mixed number is. Okay, we got to understand what these are, mixed numbers. Okay? All right, here we go. All right, so that's what we're going to try to do here. Let me go ahead and erase this as well. All right, so again, we're still in fractions, the idea of fractions, so we're understanding mixed numbers. Okay, that's what we're doing. We're understanding mixed numbers. And so mixed numbers, right? So let's say you have the number 2 and 1/5. Okay? 2 and 1/5. Well, 2 and 1/5 is the same thing as, let's go ahead and write it right here, as 2 plus 1/5. Because the way you read this is 2 and 1/5. 2 and 1/5. And is a key word that we're, again, more talking about when we get into keywords, right? And is a plus sign. So then that's why we have that plus sign. Okay? And again, the way you read this is 2 and 1/5, right? 2 and 1/5 is, that's how you read that. And that and word means plus. Okay? And we also want to remember that 1/5 is the same thing as 0.20 as a decimal. And we'll talk about how to convert that as well. And so when we look down here, we know that 2 and 1/5 is equal to 2 plus 1/5, right? 2 plus 1/5, which we said 1/5 is the same thing as 0.2. right? So we can actually change this with 0.2. So this is actually 2 plus 0.2, right? And if you've ever had decimals like we had before, right? We know this is 2.0, this is 0.2, so we'll end up getting 2.2. Okay, 2.2. So again, that tells us that 2 1/5 is the same thing as 2.2, or 2 2/10. Okay, these are the same things. Okay, so again, that's kind of what we're working with, and what we're trying to understand about how we get from mixed numbers to decimals, and trying understanding what a mixed number is. Okay, all right, thanks for watching, guys.